You're welcome back. This is Sunday Breakfast on ChannelOne TV with me, Inusafo, and Jude Mensah Duncan. We're delving into another conversation. We're talking about diabetes. We started this conversation, I think, 2 weeks ago, and we're continuing today. And our third co-host, Dr. Kalsum Adam, joins us for this segment. Do remember to send in your questions, your concerns, and we will definitely address them. Do send them to the WhatsApp number 0204 447 033. 0204 447 033, or across all our social media platforms with the hashtag Sunday Breakfast. Or you can tweet at us, X at us, Inu_S, or at Mensah Duncan. Doc, you're welcome.
Thank
we missed you last week.
Yeah, that's true. I missed you too, as well. Anyway, but I'm sure you had a good time.
Yes, we read some letters and delved into the conversation.
Oh, fantastic.
This one that you put your hand on your chin.
Because there's a lot of things running through my mind right now. I got home after like the very first diabetes conversation. Then my mom was like, Sawati! Sawati! I was dumbfounded. I'm like, Sawati there. I said, Nyamana muka was shown so they be a me come feel so I was like, calm down. So yeah, Charlie, look, it's getting to people.
Yeah.
The message is reaching.
Yeah. I'm glad it is.
The disciples are taking notice of it.
The way you said
good.
it's getting to people. Are you part of that?
People?
Because
I think I'm part of the people now.
You think?
Yeah, because I have to. Like the finger pointing is just too much now. Yeah,
it's being pointed at.
It's crazy.
I point at you when you get home. Mommy points at you as well.
And it's not even that deep for me because I don't even take as much as they make it seem.
Okay, but
So
it's important.
He takes a Coke every day with
It's
biscuits.
important.
Every other day.
It's important because,
other day.
as we mentioned, it has to do with lifestyle.
True.
Type 2 is basically 80% of it has to do with lifestyle.
The type 2.
Yes, and lifestyle has to do with how much you are eating and what you are eating. Are you eating the right foods? Are you taking in a lot of fatty foods? Are you taking in a lot of foods that will be processed and eventually will end up giving you, will be broken down into glucose into your system, and then eventually you may end up overwhelming the system, and then you can end up getting a higher risk of developing diabetes. You get it. So yes, clearly, I'm sure that's why people are lifestyle. It's important. It's important that we know that diabetes, as we started last 2 weeks, spoke about the fact that it's a complex disease. It's a metabolic disease that involves several organs, multiple organs, and multiple substances. And it has to do with you having, at that time T, you having high levels of sugar within the blood, okay, which we call hyperglycemia. And then this is as a result of a defect. And the defect can either be in the secretion or in the action of the hormone called insulin, which helps to redistribute the sugar that is within the blood to other parts of the body, so that the cells within different parts of the body can utilize this sugar to produce energy that can be used at the cellular level to keep your cells in good shape or under homeostasis. You get it. But then if you do not have, if you have a defect in this insulin secretion or action, and then it continues for a very long time, it becomes chronic, and then it ends up causing several multiple organ dysfunction at various parts of your body.
Wow.
You get it. And then eventually ends up giving you problems that you don't want to. Yes, and they are very, very debilitating and sometimes very devastating.
Wow.
And it's difficult to treat. Yeah.
I hear it a lot.
It's difficult to treat.
Yes, you can control it, but you can't say for sure. You can control it to the extent that maybe somebody has been diagnosed with diabetes. You can control, and then the person may end up even getting sugar levels now coming back to normal. But that doesn't mean that the person is not diabetic. The person is still diabetic, but you are controlling it to the basal level where the person has to still keep to the regular checks, the dietary control measures, and then making sure that he or she is checking his
So
or her
basically,
sugar.
you're living with it till
Yes, you have
death.
to live with it.
Well,
Yes.
I'll come to you on the point where now the medical officer have to resort to amputation.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
that's like final stage sort of.
So yes, definitely. That's when you have the complications of diabetes.
Wow. So I'll come to you on that. But just before that, there's this also, I hear it a lot, especially amongst young parents where maybe you're out with someone who has children and they're like, don't give the boy or the little girl too much of these fizzy drinks because it gives them so much energy, right?
Yeah.
So what's the connection there?
Okay, so fizzy drinks basically contain sugars. And sugars in their simplest form. So you have glucose. So these sugars, when they enter the body, they don't need to go through a whole lot of processing to get to that final stage. So inadvertently, it just gets into the bloodstream and it's redistributed. Once it's redistributed, it is used or utilized to produce the energy that we are talking about. You get it? But the challenge with diabetes is that you have these sugars that come within the bloodstream. Okay. But the signals or the hormones that need to cause the redistribution is either defective in its production or in its action, to the extent that you end up having the sugars still within the bloodstream, still sitting in there, but the cells are starving. So that's why we say you're starving in the midst of many. So you have the sugars within the bloodstream, but then it can't be redistributed because of the defects that we are talking about. And these defects develop with lifestyle. Some are autoimmune, that is the cells or the body self-destroying self, causing destruction of the pancreatic cells that do produce the insulin. You get it? So these are some of the things that really
it's true
should
that
explain.
these fizzy drinks give energy.
Oh yes, of
for
course.
kids and for adults.
Yes, for everybody.
Wow.
For everybody. Once you take in the sugars go inside and then
glucose.
it's redistributed, yes, and then eventually you end up producing energy.
Talking about the sugars, what investigations or what goes into determine that this amount of sugar is in your body?
Okay. All right. So first of all, in terms of investigations, we have different forms of investigation. So we have you checking the blood sugar levels that you have at any point in time. So we have something we call the fasting blood sugar, which is FBS, and then we also have the random blood sugar, which is the RBS. So random is when you have eaten already and we still want to check. Usually in emergency situations, you want to still check if the patient's present. And then the fasting blood sugar is when you wake up early in the morning, you haven't eaten over the period, and then you go in and then your blood is taken to check. So for fasting blood sugar, to just put it simply, anything below 7 should be okay. In the sense that if you have 7 millimole and above, it means that it's likely you have diabetes with some symptoms. Now, if you have sugar levels, fasting blood sugar levels of 5.6 is normal. But then when you have it between 5.7 to about 6.9, there's something we call impaired glucose, fasting glucose. It means that it's pre-diabetes, it's before. So you're in between. One leg is at diabetes, the other leg is at normal. You get it? So it puts you at an increased risk. So if you do not modify your lifestyle, it means that with the little risk, you end up tipping into diabetes, full diabetes. So that's for the fasting. Then when you come to the random blood sugar, your random is you have eaten already. You check. The level is anything above 11.1 is diabetes with symptoms. Okay, when it's below that, then we know that it's not. You get it? So those are some of the investigations that you can do. But the most sensitive one is the glycated hemoglobin. So the glycated hemoglobin, also known as HbA1c, it helps you know the sugar control in the body over the past 3 months. So it's more sensitive. So an example is, okay, so people come in and they are diagnosed with diabetes, and then they are put on medications, and they are put on some dietary restrictions, okay, and then they are sent home and asked maybe to come back in about 2 months' time for some review. Now, people sometimes, because they don't have frank symptoms, because one of the signs and symptoms of you having diabetes is not having any symptoms at all until you end up with a complication. Okay, so some people may end up going home and they want to cheat nature. Okay, so we decide to do all the wrong things, eat all the fruits, eat all the sugars.
You can't really force them.
You know?
Yeah.
And they know that, okay, in a week's time, my appointment is due. So they'll start taking their medications meticulously within that week to their appointment day. So they come for the appointment on the day of appointment, you see, and then you check their sugar levels, their fasting, and it's normal. You get it. But the most sensitive would be for you to do the HbA1c. The HbA1c gives you the correct, okay, and then the real state of the sugar levels. And you can tell from that how the sugar levels have been controlled over the period. So you would be able to tell from the HbA1c.
Doc, some messages are coming through already. Marte Lujan, I've seen your question. We'll get Doc to address it. But if you are wondering how you could also be a part of this conversation, the WhatsApp number is 0204 447 033, 0204 447 033. Send in all of your messages, your comments, your questions, your experiences, right? And Doc is in studio. She'll be glad to help you with all the useful responses you need on that. Doc, someone also wants you to. So Marty is asking the question. He says, please, I don't know if I've missed this earlier, but my question is, do fruits cause diabetes? He says, I love fruits a lot, especially sugar cane, oranges, and banana. And also here, Isaac Kokroko says, you don't forget your question about the amputation bit of the conversation. I need a lot more knowledge on that for someone close to me. So we'll start with Marty's question.
Okay.
On fruits. And,
okay.
Yeah.
So with diabetes, we say that lifestyle modification is very important. And having a balanced diet is important. It helps reduce your risk of developing diabetes. But nonetheless, there are certain fruits and vegetables that do contain high levels of sugars as well. So in our diet guidance or counseling, there are particular fruits that you may be told not to take because of their increased levels of sugars. But nonetheless, fruits and vegetables in total or overall should help reduce your risk of developing diabetes. Okay, so it's just has to do, it's personalized, where for this particular person would be able to give a particular diet plan that will suit that particular patient. But there are some fruits and vegetables, if taken in very excess levels, may end up predisposing you to increasing your glycemic levels. Before you answer the amputation question, maybe just briefly again on the differences in symptoms between the diabetes 1 and the diabetes 2.
Yeah.
Sure. So signs and symptoms, maybe I should start on this note saying that there are times that people may have diabetes, but they wouldn't show any frank signs and symptoms. That's one. So I would categorize them into 3 groups. So the ones that do not show any signs and symptoms at all, but they have the risk factors. So obviously the person is obese. Obviously the person is eating all the wrong things, okay, may end up having the increased risk. And for such cases, it even becomes more difficult because it may end up continually being there and then developing to the extent that the only time maybe the patient may know that he or she has diabetes is when it is too late, and then a complication may have set in. And then the second group would be the ones that have the signs and symptoms of the diabetes, which we spoke about at length the last time. So from having polyuria, so polyuria is increased volumes of urine. So at any point in time when you're urinating, you end up having very large volumes, abnormal volumes of urine, or even abnormal frequency. So having to urinate, I mean, at more than regular times. So at night, possibly the person may, if it's normal that some people may end up waking up once or twice to pee when they are sleeping. But when you end up waking up 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, you should check if everything is okay. And then polydipsia. So polydipsia, once you are peeing a lot of water out, it means that the body will rearrange itself and then now would force you to drink more water. Okay, so you end up having polydipsia, that is having the urge to want to drink water at any point in time. And then you have the other, which we call polyphagia. Polyphagia is you are eating a lot because the body feels that, oh, we are starving. The cells are starving, even though there is a lot of sugar within the bloodstream. The cells are starving. So the body would cause you to want to eat more. So your eating center would cause you to start eating more. Once you are eating more, but you can't see the effects. You're eating more, but you're losing weight because there's something there's a whole catabolic and then molecular level to it within your body. So polyuria, polydipsia, polyphagia, and then you losing weight as well. And then the third group, which I'll talk about, which has to do with complications. So somebody may get up early in the morning not knowing that he or she is diabetic, goes to work, does all the things that they do. And then the next thing, they start to feel a little sick, and the next minutes, they end up being comatose. Okay, so that is what we call diabetic ketoacidosis. So they end up having
diabetic
ketoacidosis.
Wow.
A mouthful.
Yeah, so they end up comatose, like reduced cognitive function, okay, to the extent that they have to be taken to the hospital and then checked. When you check, sometimes their sugars are over the roof, 35 and above, okay, which is way, 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 way high. And then others too may end up coming to the hospital with end-stage renal disease. Their kidneys are failing, and that's when you notice that they are diabetic, and it's the diabetes that predisposed them to getting the kidney failure. Yes.
Oh, there's a wow. You know,
Yeah.
Eno has been doing so many stories on on renal patients that, you know, wow.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But now they said they are going to get free dialysis care, right?
The reason the association doesn't believe it.
Maybe
They've been subjected to so many promises that really haven't been fulfilled.
because
So
me,
at
my
this
point, you know, and not to even digress, but my point is that if you're unable to even like pay the subsidies, all these like, how are you able to do like what's the R&D that has gone into like such a promise and all of that? Wow. But just
Anyway.
you're making a point on
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, so those are the ones that present with complications. You have your cognitive affecting the brain, and then some affecting your kidneys, and some come with chronic ulcers, non-healing ulcers.
Non-healing ulcers.
So because of the pathophysiology of the diabetes, ends up causing, it affects your blood vessels. Okay, so you have all the complications like the retinopathies, you have your neuropathies, you have even, so these neuropathies tend to cause you not to be able to tell when you have injured yourself. Okay, so
There's no sensitivity.
exactly, it affects your how you perceive sensation. Okay, to the extent that you wouldn't be able to perceive that you are hurt or you wouldn't perceive that something had gone wrong. And then because of the reduced immunity, and then it's the effect of diabetes on the blood vessels, the blood, once you get hit, your body needs to heal. And the healing has different phases where blood needs to get to the area. When blood gets to the area, at least you have food get into the area to help with the healing. You have oxygen get into the area to give you oxygen to help with the oxygenation. And then you have the other cells, white blood cells, that help with healing to take away whatever the injurious agent is. But then, because the blood vessels are affected, all of these processes become slower than usual. One, you tend to get hurt. You are not, you can't feel that you have gotten hurt. That's one. So that's continuous. So there are people that maybe they step on something that is a sharp object, but they can't perceive it because of the complication. So because they can't perceive it, then it continues to eat away, okay? And then your inflammation is also sluggish to help with the healing. So you don't get the blood vessel, the blood gets into the area for the healing to start. So eventually it keeps eating into your body, and then by the time you realize it, it's a chronic ulcer. It's an ulcer that has become chronic in the sense that it's been there for a very long time. And because the right environment it doesn't have the right environment to heal, it tends to continually grow. So eventually you may end up having it amputated. So it brings us to the amputation that we were talking about.
And it could be any body part.
Yes, but most of the time it's in the extremities. Reasons being that those are the areas that are exposed to trauma more.
Doc,
because you walk with your legs.
Feel you.
You get it. Once you're walking with your legs, anything can happen. And then because it also affects the autonomic, so if it's affecting the nervous system, it affects the autonomic as well. The autonomic is like an automatic way where it helps you to sweat when you have to. It helps you to, to produce some sebum and all of that. But then if it affects the autonomic system, what happens is that it tends to make you have much more drier skin than usual. So imagine you having drier skin than usual. It means that the skin can easily crack. And if it cracks, microbacterium can enter. And then it can start the whole infection process.
Time is far gone, but just finally maybe the relationship or correlation between diabetes and erectile dysfunction, because Charlie, for some people that is the only thing that will get them to pay attention. Is there even a relationship to begin with?
So I would say that there is no direct relationship, but then the point is that once you have the complications of diabetes, it affects your blood vessels, blood flow to the area. So that can be a secondary effect on erectile dysfunction and make it a little worse. Yes. So those are some of the things that we want to hammer and then let people know that we have spoken about the signs and symptoms of diabetes. One group being you don't have any signs and symptoms at all. The next thing is tracks you, and then you have to be in the hospital with complications. The second, we have delved into the classical signs and symptoms of diabetes. You having to pee a lot, volumes, drink a lot of water, and then eat a lot. All of that, and then you have the complicated ones too that we have spoken about. And then those ones become very difficult to the extent that if it has to do with peripheral nerve injuries or peripheral artery diseases, you may end up having
There's this message that says that, hello, good morning, doc. Please, during the raining season or when the weather is cold, I pass urine a lot. Please, does that mean I'm developing diabetes? Darius Aheto from Hohoy. And also, please, doc made mention of non-healing ulcer. My sister has been battling with ulcer for a while now, and she has visited hospitals, but she keeps feeling stomach aches. Does that mean she's having diabetes? And this other message says, hello, good morning. Thank you for such an insightful health information. My favorite show every morning. Well, thank you to you. Didn't send your name, but we are grateful for that. And this other message says that my colleague at work always eats his food with very sweet things like plantain, sweet potatoes, all the time. Every single meal of his has something very sweet on it. Is that an issue or a potential diabetes risk? No name on that message as well. Good morning. Let me thank the doctor for a wonderful job. Thank you, Doc. I want her to explain the relationship between diabetes and kidney failure. I think you've done that.
Yes,
you've done that extensively. So maybe just Darius Aheto's question on when the weather is cold and he passing urine a lot, doesn't mean he's developing I was going to say breast cancer, sorry, diabetes. And maybe just add this question to it. Please, Doc, what is the right diet to be taken by the preliminary, trouble for me, preliminary diabetic patients? So maybe just a wrap.
Okay, all right. So I'll take the cold weather and then the urine bits. So cold weather and urine, well, I wouldn't say that he's developing diabetes. There are so many other things that can end up predisposing you to getting high volumes of urine. So he needs to have checked. He needs to have his sugars checked. And then if there is anything within the diabetic range, we would be able to advise him accordingly. And then the second question that had to do with...
he eats a lot of his food with sweet stuff.
So it's important. Lifestyle, it's a major part of you reducing your risk of developing diabetes. So I would say that, yes, you need to reduce some of these fatty foods, some of these high sugar containing foods when you're eating. Incorporate a lot of fruits and vegetables in your diet. And I think that should do. And also make sure that you are not observing or indulging in sedentary lifestyle. Physical activity is very important. And then make sure that your BMI is always within the normal range, which we spoke about the last time, between 18 to about 24.9. And it's calculated. You can just walk into any clinic at all and ask
the body mass index.
The body mass index. Your weight in kilograms divided by your height in meters squared. And then you should make sure that you are within this range. Anything above it, you get to overweight, and then we have the obesity spectrum as well.
The final question.
The final question.
I want
on the urine and the bedding.
No, so just come with that.
Okay, so there's one here because we have to go. I want to know, what should one do if he or she is not able to empty the bladder fully and ends up urinating continually during bedtime?
Okay, so that could be another disease altogether. So quickly come to the hospital and let's assess, and then make sure, because a lot of things can go into the age of the patient, the sex of the patient, and all of that.
You know, this is a very final question. I want the person to reach out personally because he wants to know the right diet that can be taken by the preliminary diabetic patient. But I think it differs based on conditions.
And you need to personalize it.
So I'm learning.
You are doing so well.
Guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doc. Thank you so much for your questions as well. And we'll definitely have to continue the conversation because clearly we couldn't exhaust all of the questions you have for Doc on the show. So thank you so much. Grateful for your time.
Thank you too.